Hey everybody, this is Robert from Sigma 3 Survival, and I wanted to show y'all part 2 of the series of the T-bar baited snare. This is one of Tom Brown Jr.'s favorite traps. It's based on a spring pole setup. Let me show you our spring pole. This is the type of spring pole I like. I know I see a lot of guys out there who use these short little trees, but they just don't have the kind of lift action that you need, especially for, you know, anything like a coon or something that's really going to put some meat on the table. You know, rabbits are great and everything, but they're not all that big, and you know, if you can take a 35-pound coon with the same kind of, you know, trap that you can take a, you know, 3 to 5 pound rabbit, you're always going to go for more meat. So, you know, find yourself a good spring pole that's got a lot of good rise action in it. And with the T-bar, the reason they call it a T-bar is because of this device right here. Basically, all you do is find a stick that's got a twig off the side of it, and this is going to be your actual bait stick, and you make 2 little notches in it just like that. And it's real simple. And the only other carving in the trap is 2 notches right here. And the way it sets is the T-bar will set in here. The rope attaches right here, your spring pole will come right here, and basically your snare is going to set over the outside of this little fence here. And the reason that we create that fence is so that it forces the animal's head into the snare. This is one reason that this snare is probably a little bit better than the other T-bar baited snare from part 1. But this takes quite a bit more time to carve and to build the actual trap. So you know, the benefits kind of negate themselves. So, but one thing about this trap is it's more effective at getting the animal's head, which is very important in any kind of primitive trapping. So if you've got some time and you know, you want to make sure that this trap is going to be effective, I would probably pick this trap over the other T-bar snare. But right now we're gonna set up the actual rope and pull our spring pole down and set our snare around our fence here, and we're going to show you how it works. It's very important where you put your knot placement with this trap, because what'll happen, let's say if you put your knot back here or in the front, depending on where you put it, it'll have a tendency to want to tilt up or down based on knot placement. So make sure that your knot is directly over the top of where the bait bar is going to be. And I'll show y'all real quick, if you haven't ever seen a snare done, it's just the simplest thing in the world. Just fold a piece of rope over on itself and then run it back around, put through the loop. And you want to have a fairly small loop, just big enough for the rope to pass through, so that when the animal's neck gets cinched, it holds tight. And then you'll just run the other end of this back through, and then you've got your snare. Typically you want a good, you know, 3 feet, not too much. But so just remember knot placement, one of the most important parts of this. And now we're going to attach this to the spring pole, and we'll come back in a few seconds and show you the final wrap-up on this trap. Alright, I've got the spring pole set up. One of the things you want to keep in mind is to keep the spring pole pretty close to the trigger. You don't want a whole lot of distance here. That way you get the most rise out of it that you possibly can. Keep your T-bar on a really light trigger right up until you're ready to actually set it and throw your bait on and everything, because these things can pop out and you don't want to get poked in the eye. But the great thing about this trap is once you get your snare attached, you run your snare around the outside of the fence here, and the reason that this trap is as effective as it is because it forces the animal's head into the snare every time. He's got to put his head in the snare in order to get the bait, which is really important in any kind of primitive trap. You know, the one thing that always causes an animal to get away is if you don't get him around the neck and you get a body hold, they'll just end up chewing through it 8 out of 10 times. So you want to increase your odds as much as you can. So you run your snare all the way around the fence, hook in your trigger, and this thing is ready to go. Make sure you bait it before you actually set the trigger. and you know, you can either tie it on or just spear a piece of meat through the trigger stick here. And I'm going to set this off for you and show you how it works. But the animal will come in here, stick its head, and then it lifts up off the ground just like that. And you know, I really love the baited T-bar snare. I think there's good reason that this is one of Tom's favorite traps, because it's just really effective at funneling the animal's head into the actual trap. And it doesn't take too long to set up. The other T-bar snare is a little bit quicker to carve, but you're a little bit less likely to get a head snare out of it. So this is another one that you can throw into your arsenal.